This is all building towards our final activity, which is our group character brainstorm. Now, what I mean by this is you are going to brainstorm in a group each one of your characters that you're writing for your individual stories. So think about a character who's going to inhabit your specific story within this city that you're building. So other things to keep in mind, their history. For their history, I mean something that we know for sure has happened to them. Not what they think or feel, but actual facts about their life. For example, I'm going to use Don Draper throughout the entirety of this slide to illustrate what I'm looking for. So history and facts of Don Draper. So we know that essentially he grew up poor. He had a very tough home life. And that really informed the rest of his character. He faked his own death, essentially, in Vietnam, etc. This is what I'm looking for. So we'll put vet as well here, and he's a liar. Let's say that's the beginning of it here. Now we're looking for beliefs. So in the case of Don Draper, what does Don Draper believe? What does your character believe? For Don, he is sort of searching for what he believes in. He doesn't have really know who he is, so his identity is a crucial thing about his character that obviously kind of we would explore throughout his story. We know that he believes in creativity as well, because he does essentially creative pitches for different products. Now we're going to look at his flaws. Now this one, if you've seen the show Mad Men at all, this is pretty apparent here. I would say he definitely has some alcohol dependency issues, and he's definitely not very faithful either. He cheats on his wife, constantly trying to find a way to fulfill himself. Let's say even one more, because Don certainly has plenty of flaws. He definitely feels empty inside. Now, when you look at these, you can kind of see how they might interact with one another there because of his, essentially his upbringing. Maybe it's led to, of course, his beliefs, and those, of course, impact his flaws. Now, this all leads us to, of course, the arc of the character over the course of your story. Now, arc basically means how they're growing and changing throughout the entire story here. So in the case of Don, we're going to basically say he goes from being negative, and then by the end of it, he is more positive. His flaws, he's overcome them, essentially. Maybe he's a good family man. He's no longer drinking as much. He is something he believes in, etc. You're going to work as a group and discuss this. Now, what I want you to do is you're not going to have just one solution. You're not going to have one character by the end of this. You're going to have a lot of different pitches from your other group members. So what I want you to do is depending on how many versions of a character or ideas for a character you come up with, I want you to go and mark down just the basics of that character under each number here, okay? And it could be something very, very simple as you might, in the case of Don Draper, say maybe a vet, drinking problems, and you might, say that essentially overcomes PTSD. So by the end of it, overcome that. Another one might be an ad man looking for something to believe in. Okay, very simple. We don't need paragraphs of who this character is, a detailed story, but just the core of them. Because essentially what we're going to do for this very last activity, for activity 4, now that you've chosen your character, each one of you will have a character you've decided to write a story about. I want you to discuss these 4 questions. What's the profession of your character? How do they encounter one another? How do these encounters change them? And how does it change your story? And by that last one, I specifically mean is based on what you were planning on writing. Now that you have to have your character come across these your other group member characters, how does that change your story? Maybe you had a story where they didn't run into any people, and now you have to figure out a way to accomplish that. So these are things to keep in mind. And essentially what I want you to do at the very end here is just then explain in a paragraph, just one paragraph, nothing too long, how these characters are going to interact with one another. When you've done all this, we will then begin on the final part of our process, which is actually going to be writing a complete, of course, short story. And this is going to be something where I'm not looking for anything more than 15 pages. Really, what I would say is you want to shoot for about 10 pages max. This is going to be really what I'm looking for.